want to say a really quick welcome to you, ladies. I'm so happy to welcome you to today's online talk with Ana Moreno, who helps visionary entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and values-driven creatives with business coaching. And in this 60-minute session, we will go through how to get clear on your purpose and build a dream business with various proven strategies. So I'm super excited to hear what Ana has to say to us. And Ana has prepared a few slides, which she will share, but please feel free to put anything in the chat. You can also unmute yourself if you have a question or want to say something, feel free to do that. And if anything gets missed, I will make sure to cover that at the end. So we'll make sure we have a bit of a Q&A when we will come back. So I hope you enjoy it, ladies. And Ana, over to you.
Thanks, Christina, and so glad to be here. I'm really excited to share this with you because I know how it feels to be in that stage where you're like, I'm ready to really find my purpose and build a dream business, but like how and where do I start? So I'm really passionate of helping early stage entrepreneurs and helping you like define your dream business, but also scale it. So I just wanted to share some ideas, and feel free to interrupt and ask questions. This is meant to be really supportive for you. So if you have anything, just drop it in the chat or raise your hand, and I'm happy to answer anything as we're going. So welcome. As Christina shared, I'm Ana Maria, and I'm the founder of Copal, and we really do business coaching for visionary entrepreneurs and including aspiring entrepreneurs. And if you're ready to settle for a life that's not yours and really get clear on your purpose and build a dream business and feel more peace and ease of mind and financial overflow and joy and purpose, I think now is probably the best time in history to start your own dream business. So I'm super excited that you're thinking about that, and I hope that this is helpful. And yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about is how to align your strengths with what your customers need. So when you're thinking about your dream business, something that's really important is looking at like what is the intersection between the value that you want to offer and what really lights you up with what your ideal customers need. And this may sound pretty obvious, but I think it's really important because often I still find that a lot of people build businesses that are based on what they want to offer, and then try and find somebody that wants to buy what they want to offer, or vice versa. They're really only looking at what a customer needs, and then not even thinking about like, is this something that I really want to serve and I'm excited about doing every single day? So when you're thinking about a business, look at like what are your strengths and how to match those with what your ideal customer needs. So when you're identifying your strengths, some questions that you can think through are, what I love doing so much that I could do it all day. And it sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's true. It's so you launch a business that really feels like maybe you're even working more than your previous job, but it doesn't feel like work because you just love what you're doing and you can really do it all day. Or what are my natural gifts and strengths that I want to share with other people? Maybe people already come to you for something in particular, like they're already coming to you for relationship advice, or they're already asking you about the best recipes, or you're already the go-to for something and people are already thanking you for something. So if that's the case, what is that? And how can you really lean into that? Another thing is what comes so easily to you that you might assume that everyone else can do too, but that's not necessarily the case. So I often find people that for them, marketing is just the easiest thing, and like they'll do it for their friends and their dad and everyone, and like they're like, oh, I could get paid for this, and it's like, yeah, they don't even see it as something that's different. But it's so looking at like what is something that really just feels easeful. So when I was deciding to start Copal, I was like, I could literally talk about personal development and business all day, any day, and listen to 5 hours of podcasts about it. So that's where my interests lie. And so looking at what are the things that you spend a lot of time on, a lot of your money on, and that informs where your passion lies. Great. And then on the other side, really looking at what your ideal customer needs. So first defining who your ideal customer is. So if you were to think about somebody that you want to serve and somebody that you want to like connect with on a daily basis, what does that person look like? So often that can come from an experience that you've had. So sometimes you've experienced a pain point, and now you've navigated that pain point. So looking at like how could you help others that are navigating that pain point go through it in a much more easeful way. Or often you see somebody that has a problem and you're just tired of seeing that problem happen over and over and over again. So looking at like a problem that's already there that you really just want to end, and it's really important to you that that doesn't continue. So whether you've personally related to that or not. Or another way could be looking at like, what's your vision for the world? Like, what is there something that you feel like really needs to be there that just doesn't exist? And so who the customer for that would be. And then looking at like, what is this person's current problem? And what are they really struggling with? And then what is their dream solution and how you could help them bridge that gap? So for instance, the problem that I identified was that female founders or people that are wanting to start a business were really struggling with, one, getting clear on what that business was, and then two, how to fast track that business. And then they really wanted to build these dream businesses that felt amazing, gave them financial abundance. And so it's like, how do I help somebody go from point A to point B? And then talking to customers, I'm like, what is the best way to help them do that? So really looking at the customer's needs through that lens of like problem and then dream outcome. And yeah, what pisses you off about your customers' lives? So if you look at it, you're like, I'm just not willing to allow for that to continue. And I really think that it's important to solve that. And then this will really inform your why and like what you're doing it, and I'll cover that in a bit. But that informs like why you're doing what you're doing, and the why is really important because that's what is the heartbeat of your business and what really will fuel you even in times where things feel hard. And then the how can change. So often you can, in my case, I'll just use that as another example. It's like, I really want to help female founders launch and grow their businesses. How that happens might evolve. It could look like talks or books or coaching, but why I'm doing it is really to serve this woman and helping her build that dream life. So not thinking so much on the how, but thinking through, again, that pain point and challenge. Then another thing I would really advise at this early stage is talking to people. So once you've identified who is this customer, really doing customer research. So the first thing I recommend when you're doing that research is first identifying what your objectives are for that research. So maybe the research is to understand pain points. And so or to understand pain points and dream outcomes, or what are people currently using. Especially in this early stage, I would advise a combination of the three. So what are people's current pain points? What are the biggest challenges that they're having in the specific field that you want to tackle? How are they currently solving them? What have they tried? And has that worked and has it not? And so that really will help you like understand like what's being offered, what are people feeling like they could be better, or what do people love, but like it's still the price is too high, or it's just not meeting a need. So really talking to people, because that will really inform like what's going on in that person's lives and how you can support them. And as you're doing that, you'll also start feeling into how does that resonate with you? Like maybe you have customer interviews and you thought your ideal client was that specific person, but then when you talk to them, you're like, actually, I don't think I want to do that, or like, I'm not qualified to do that. So the customer research is both to understand your customer, but also as you're doing it to really feel if that's really your ideal customer. And when you feel really energized to support this person and you feel excited that you're going to give them something of value, then that's when you know that's your ideal customer. And then once you've defined that ideal customer, it's thinking of like building a profile for that person. And I would recommend, instead of like your target audience, like your ideal customer avatar. So like, what age are they? What's their gender? What's their income? What's their educational level? What is their lifestyle? Do they have hobbies? Do they have particular quirks? How do they act? What do they buy? What do they listen to? What brands are they loyal to? So really think about, like, if you were to describe, say, Christina, like uh putting together like a picture of who Christina is, and like, what does she like? What does she not like? What does she listen to? And so really looking at that, and from like a pretty granular level, and Christina would be your avatar and the person that represents your ideal customer. And I think that looking at that from like a individual level can sometimes be better than like your target audience, because target audience can then feel like this abstract thing that it's like, oh, an audience, whereas like when you talk to a person, you're really like looking at, in this case, Christina, and like, what is she struggling with? Like, how can I help her? And like, it just becomes a more emotional and direct connection with a person, as opposed to you're serving a target audience, and then that feels pretty disconnected. I just saw something in the chat. Okay, great. Then when you're doing the interviews, there's multiple ways that you could do the interviews. I really recommend starting with interviews. Sorry, there's multiple ways that you can gather information. I really recommend starting with interviews. So in these interviews, you just have one-on-one conversations. And as I said, you can really go into what are their pain points, what are their dream outcomes, and what are current solutions that they're looking at. And the reason I recommend going into interviews is because you can really have more of a conversation with this person and get more granular, and maybe that leads you to tangents, that it's more information than you would have expected. And then you could do either focus groups or surveys. I would recommend at the early stages to start with interviews and then maybe launch a few surveys. The interviews will help you get the depth of information, and then the surveys will help you see if that depth scales to a larger audience. So you could do a few interviews where you really go deep, and then you have a few hypotheses of things that you want to see if that's true for, maybe you do 5 interviews, you want to see if that's true for 30 people. So then you send your survey with specific things to those 30 people based on the insights that you got from the interview. So that's what I would recommend. And then in these interviews, think about like not just what they're sharing, but also how they're sharing it. So I would really keep track of like, what are the words that they're using? How are they describing the problem? How are they describing the solution? So that when you later build a product, you're building it from their perspective and not just from yours. So often I find people that are positioning their product and they're like, but I'm not getting any sales. And it's because they're talking about their product in the way that they want to talk about it, but then their customers are like, I would never speak about it that way. So I think the interviews really help you also learn how your customer sees the problem, the solution, and your product. And then you can speak to them directly without and speaking to them as opposed to at them, which is a really big thing later on. And you're probably not at the stage, but if you have launched a website or social media, you could also do like tests to see like, what are people resonating with? Launch a few posts, just play around. I think at this stage, you really have to be comfortable with experimentation and seeing what sticks. And it's okay that something flops. That's pretty much expected at this stage, but it's just like allowing yourself to play and experiment and learn from everything that you're doing. And I talked about this, but creating those profiles based on what you found and like the main problems, and building based on that. And then I would really test your idea. So you've talked to your customer, define what their pain points are, and then maybe you identify that there's a specific product that you want to offer, then I would do a test. So launch like a minimum viable product or prototype of this test and learn. So if you're doing a service-based business, maybe offer a few sessions of your business for free. Or if you're launching a product, putting your product in front of the person and seeing how they use it and what they would use it for. So just like conducting small tests to see how people respond to it before you go and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars on creating the product and hiring a manufacturing company, getting a ton of inventory, and then seeing if it sells. It's like, how could you do these small tests to get validation quickly? For some coaches in particular, I've seen like if they want to do a course, maybe even selling the course before you build the course, or and that helps you validate whether people are interested in your course or not. Or maybe offering a sample session, and then you can use that to convert your clients. So it's like really doing these small tweaks to see if you offer something, will somebody pay for it? Because maybe you think it's a great idea, all your friends think it's a great idea. I can tell you it's a great idea, but like it's really if people are gonna put dollars to what you're offering, that you start getting little confirmation that this is something that's worth investing. And it's better to learn at this stage, at the earlier stages, that this isn't something that's worth your time and just pivoting quickly, as opposed to going down a rabbit hole and then later being like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. So this is really a good stage to make those adjustments and get feedback before doing a full launch. These are a few examples of people that have done that and it's really worked. And then I also think like it's getting clear on like your big idea or your big problem, and make sure that it's a problem that you feel emotionally attached to. So the why and your purpose is going to be really important, because if you're not emotionally attached to your product, then when your team is not doing what you want them to do, or people aren't buying, or sales aren't as good as you wanted them to, then it's going to be really tough. So it's like thinking of your personal mission statement and your purpose and this overarching vision you have for yourself, and that'll help you really navigate like the challenging bits when things get tough. So I think really nailing your why and letting that evolve is key. And like I said, it'll help you really drive persistence, grit, and it's what you need to really feel passionate about when times feel tough. And it connects you to your customer, because you both share this desire for this vision or this mission to be true in the world. And so it's like dating when you both want to get married. It's like, okay, it feels really nice because we both have this desire to build a life together. Then another thing is looking at your values, your pillars, and your principles. So beyond just thinking about like this overarching mission is your why. So for instance, for me, my why is to support more female entrepreneurs to build dream businesses that give them financial abundance. But the pillars of that are being bold. So feeling like you're creating something that makes you feel alive and inspired, even if no one understands it. Another pillar is purpose and contributing value to the world. And so what does that equate to for you? What are like the pillars of your business that after this overarching mission statement, there's like these values that feel like they're really important to you? And it's part of your contribution to the world, and they shape the DNA of your business and really make the difference in why your business has to exist and like the DNA of your business. Because when you then look at creating, in my case, something that's bold, then people that are bold will resonate with that. So it's like, what are those values that transcend everything that you do, whether it's your marketing or your product or your positioning or your design, and how can you make sure that you have those super clear since the beginning, so that then that informs everything that you do. And then how could you also build a business that's beyond more than just making money? It's really helping create a positive change for people, for the community, for the planet, and then makes profit and does good in the world. So there's always ways to do that, whether it's through giving additional value, or if somebody purchased something, then they get, then you provide something in exchange. But it's like thinking beyond making money. And I share this because beyond just being nice, it's like, it's really also strategic, because it will provide you inspiration. It will help you feel inspired and creative. But also, it's proven that 59% of Americans prefer to support socially responsible companies. So I think it's amazing that now we can create impact in a way that actually helps our bottom line, as opposed to feeling like we're competing. And it'll also help you attract and retain a stronger team and change people's lives. So as you're thinking through your business, think about like, how could I also add these layers of like impact there? Another thing is looking at your white space. So something that I often find is that people are looking at like, oh, but I want to be a coach, but I'm scared because there are already so many coaches out there. Or I want to offer this diaper product, but there's already diapers. So like, why would I do that? And so it's like, what I recommend is like, when we talk about white space, it's looking at what are the unique attributes to you that are different, whether it's you personally, like we all have our unique stories that, even though I'm a coach, like my version of coaching is different than every other person out there. Or even though I'm selling diapers, like the way that I got to diapers is very different than everyone out there. So it's like looking at like, what is your unique story? What are your unique strengths? And then also, what are some of the quirky things that maybe like are things that you're like, oh, if I'm in business, then I can't show up in this particular way. Or if I'm doing, like traditionally, there's been a way that each industry does things. And so we feel like we can't do it differently because then we won't fit that mold. But what I recommend is like looking at what are the things that make you unique and quirky, so that instead of trying to compete in your industry, you're actually standing out from it, because you're not even in the same space as that. So I use me as an example just because I feel like it gives it, it makes it more tangible. But for me, I do business coaching. So bringing in all of my experience with Uber, I did my MBA at Oxford. And so it's bringing all of my business coaching expertise. But at the same time, I also found myself going on this healing journey and looking at the inner work and breaking through some of my stories of feeling like I needed to be perfect and I felt like an imposter. And that shaped kind of like also looking at the inner work. And so the business coaching now combines both. So instead of shying away from like, I just need to be a business coach and can't talk about this, or I just need to be somebody that looks at the embodiment pieces and can't go into business, now I've created a space where it's both. And then that's very different from what's currently out there, at least in my own way. So I would just encourage you to think about, and for me, for a long time, that felt like I couldn't do both of those. I felt like an imposter in both areas. And what I've come to realize is that actually is what my white space is, doing something that doesn't exist in either industry. So I would just encourage you to think about maybe what are those things that you're like, oh, I could never go into that. And like, instead of shying away from that, really leaning in. And I think I'll stop there in case anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. That has been there's been a lot of information shared, and I think it just gives us a very good foundation to start thinking about our businesses. I'm actually going to stop sharing your screen for 1 second,
Yeah.
because I would love to know which stage you are at, ladies, with your businesses, your ideas. Have you started it? Are you thinking about it? Is it something new? Is it something that's been brewing away for years and you never really felt brave enough to start it? So yeah, I'd love to hear if you want to share.
I can go if no one
Thank
wants
you.
to. So I'm also a coach.
Mhm.
And I started it, I think, about 2 years ago now. So I guess it's kind of like at a good stage.
Yeah.
But the reason actually for coming on here was more around workshops, like wanting, like one of the areas that I want to move more into is like workshops. So I do a lot of one-to-one.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking, so I built my um business up to like 6 figures just doing
Mhm.
one-to-one, but I definitely want to do more groups and workshops and like retreats.
Yes.
So that was kind of more just wanting to understand kind of that area.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's it's really exciting that you're already in it and it's working and
Yeah.
doing
No,
it and yeah.
it's good, but I think it's like because it's so like what I'm doing is so one-dimensional at the moment.
Okay.
So I think, when you were talking about like the white space,
Yeah.
I think the area that I'm, I guess, afraid to like move into in a way is the workshops, is the groups.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. And
so
I think every time you expand into a different area, even within your business, when you create a brand extension, it's really important to actually think about these fundamental things because it's one thing that you started a business and it's working, but when you are trying something different, it's good to go back to, okay, who am I actually targeting with this? Is this something
yeah,
you're going to be excited about? Putting this additional thing on top of my everyday thing. And you really have to check in on these points. So it was really helpful for me as well to go through
yeah,
these.
100%. Because I think, when you do go into different areas of the business, I think, when you get to a certain stage, it's easy to forget about the fundamentals,
Yeah,
about kind of like the basics. And I
yeah,
think, everything that you mentioned, like finding your why and
mm,
um, doing the market research, I think you do have to go back to that
yeah,
when you
yeah,
are starting something new. So I
yeah,
think that was kind of like a good reminder for me as well, like in my business is like, don't get carried away and forget about the things that actually build the strong foundation of your business.
yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I for me it's really important to like not get distracted by fads or
Yes.
not look at the fundamentals because we could get so lost in like the next shiny object of like, oh, I'm gonna do reels and oh look there's and like but it's like there's like business requires looking at like very clear fundamentals of like running customer interviews, looking at your why. This has like been done for centuries and like it's the foundation of businesses. And although we're now doing digital businesses, it's still like things that we need to keep on across every stage of our business. So really looking at these fundamentals and nailing them is what's going to create the difference between building a business that generates money for a specific amount of time and a legacy and a business that is actually sustainable.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think that that's really important. I'd love to hear more about like your question related to courses. Like, what are you struggling with?
I think it's like, I think I'm just, I think the fear for me is like, how do I switch? I'm so used to doing one-to-one. I've been doing it day in, day out for like the last 2 years. But I think it's around how do you switch from coaching one-to-one to like coaching in a group and how different is it?
Mhm.
And like how
Yeah,
do you manage people?
well, I think there's many ways to do the switch. You know, there's a way where you could do the switch of just one live call per week where you just answer questions. There's a way that you could do the switch where you do group coaching. There's a way that you could do the switch where you do more of a course. So I would also look at like one, like what feels best for you. And so you can maybe do that transition in like an easeful way. So it's like an extension of your one-on-one. So maybe now you do group coaching or you just start with like a mastermind where you're not as involved in the coaching and you're supporting with answering questions. So I would just look at like the different options and also what feels right for you. And also I would also really encourage you to think about like, okay, well, I've done this group, like these one-on-one coaching, like that has been really effective. What is the method that I want to create based on that one-on-one coaching? Like, how have I really seen, have I really seen works? And how could I now scale that? So you've already helped so many people go from a problem to a dream outcome. Now, how can you sort of like put the recipe book to that recipe and like now guide people through that recipe, through that dish and creating that dish? So I think when you're doing one-to-one, everything is very personalized, but you could
Yes.
start to see, but you could still start to see like things that worked in your method, ways that you applied different things. And so it's like, how could now you build a method that method also informs your one-to-many offer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's also what's really interesting that if you are coaching people on a one-on-one basis, there is so much value in, I think, bringing those people together, and actually everyone can then interact and maybe find solutions together in ways that maybe you might not be able to. I'm not saying that you
Yeah, no,
wouldn't.
you're
It's
100%
just
right.
there is so much power in sharing as well. If you are coaching people about a similar problem or similar issues that they are facing. So I think even keeping that in mind, you know, it's just there's so much value can be created just by bringing those people together. Maybe it doesn't feel so scary to make that jump because it's actually already there.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think like collectively, because when you're having like a one-to-one conversation, it's very much between the two of you, and
Mm.
sometimes you can't see outside of that conversation
Yeah,
like a different
yeah,
perspective that someone else can offer.
yeah.
So I think for me, like, yeah, I'm always open and love like learning from everyone because I feel
Yeah.
like wherever you're at in your journey, from beginners to, you know, seven figures, like millionaires, like I feel like everyone has something to teach you and like you can learn from on this journey.
100%. There's so many different perspectives as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I
Yeah.
would love to know other ladies what you are doing. What's your plan? If you want to share. I don't want to put pressure on anyone, but I would absolutely love to hear. Where are you with your journey? Starting a business, or if it's still just a dream or something that you're toying with. Anyone?
I cold call. Caroline, I saw you nodding quite a few times.
Putting it
I
on the
can go.
spotlight.
Yeah, well, so at the moment I work for like a big company. I work in a big corporation, and actually my role in that is to drive a small business within that. So I kind of came with two heads. Like I was interested in how do I drive like a startup within a big corporation and balance the restraints you get from the processes that you're governed by. So I was interested from that point of view. And I'm at the same time I'm also training to become a celebrant, and I'm kind of going through that course at the moment. And I think it would start off being a side thing that I would do. So I was just interested because there's quite a lot of people in that space, how I would cut through and be relevant and think about offering something that was different, um, so that people choose you. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's about knowing how do you how do they find you or see you, and how do you connect with that customer. And then I guess my other question was, when you're building that business, how much time do you spend thinking about the moment that you're in and what you're delivering for that year or that time, and then how much time do you spend like future planning to think about the evolution and scaling of that? So all of those things were going through my head when you were talking.
Amazing. Did any of what we shared help in your process?
Yes. Yes, it was very. I've done. I did some training on like design thinking, and actually, when you were talking through the process and what you were the various stages, it was very similar to that in terms of talking to the customer first and prototyping and thinking about not only the voice of the customer and what they're telling you, but also maybe thinking about their behavior as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You are moving somewhere, and I can see.
Sorry, for the door, but I'm back. I was listening too.
Awesome, amazing. Anyone else would like to share anything or any observations? Where are you in your journey, Linda? I don't want to. Don't want to put. I can see you want to share.
Yeah, not really. It really is just you know, thinking about photography, that type of thing that I could do. I just yeah, I mean, I do sort of marketing and communications anyway, but it's just thinking about if I was to sort of think about photography, because it's such a competitive space, and also you know, I've still got a lot of learning to do, so I don't think I'm going to be able to sort of give up what I'm doing to be able to do it full time. So it's being able to do it on a part-time basis, but still have, you know, you know, put myself sort of out there. But I need to find the niche. I need to find where my customers are and what I want to provide to them. So I'm at the very early stages, really.
Yeah, but I think with photography, I think it's also so much about what you enjoy taking pictures of, and I think that way you will find your customers as well. And I think it's probably a very good way to start is creating, you know, even an Instagram profile or somewhere where you can share that and start building those people who actually it resonates with.
Yeah,
and then later on go full time on it if it allows you to do that. But yeah, it's often we create this huge problem in our head, and it's like, oh, I need to do all of these things in order to start. But actually, sometimes all it takes is just a tiny step, just one step. What can I do today to get to my goal? And just do that and focus on that, and don't think about the big picture, but just slowly start going towards it. It helps to eventually get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
And I would say starting when you're in your job, and same, Caroline, thank you for sharing. I think starting when you're in your job is like a really perfect time. Like, I started when I was still at Uber, and I would just like start the branding and then did my website and then did a course and certification and started doing free sessions and practicing. And that was exactly what I needed to feel comfortable. And then I did so many of these things that it got to the point where I was like, okay, the only reason why I wouldn't do it is because I'm scared. And so, and then I jumped. But I feel like it's not always the case that it's the best for you to just jump into your business and leave your life behind. And like, otherwise it doesn't work. I think starting with your business while you're in your job can actually be really good, because I feel like if sometimes for some people, making that jump can feel very dysregulating for your nervous system, and it's just like too much. And then you're creating your new business in a way that you're like really stressed and anxious, and that's not like the place that you want to create your business from. So if you can already start laying these pieces in place as you're doing just by being here while you're in your business, like slowly those things add up to a place where then you can take the lead when you feel like you really are clear on what you're building. And that takes time often, and it takes experimentation and testing. And so giving yourself that space in your free moments is amazing.
I really like what you said about the customer needs, because I think sometimes you think about your customers' needs based on what you think they need rather than finding out from them what they need. So it's really good to think about building it more from those interviews and what you get from them, because actually it might be different to what you're thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have so many clients that they're like, I built this thing, but nobody wants it. And it's like, well, it's important to also have those customer interviews and ask and really understand like how you're supporting them, and then feeling if that support is something that you want to offer, or otherwise iterating to make sure that those two things match. So really looking at both is important. And Lilia, actually that made me think of you as you're thinking of like this new way of doing it. I would really talk to your customers, which you already have, and maybe looking at talking to them and seeing what you can offer them in a group way.
Yeah, but I think it's also not being afraid to shift things when you are already running your business, because that's exactly what I did with Merit. I started it, I had a clear vision, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I felt that there was a gap and a problem I was solving. And I spoke to a lot of people, of course, but as Merit launched and then started hosting events, and then we started speaking to more people, it became clear that actually they need something else, not entirely, but like different types of events, maybe simpler events. It doesn't have to be always a panel discussion, or doesn't have to, we don't have to put so much effort into creating these meetups, because all you want is actually just meeting up with each other. So it can be as simple as walking in a park. So it's not being afraid to maybe shifting as you go. You know your purpose, you know what you want to put out in the world, but I think it's also important to reflect on what your customers want, and I think that's just part of the journey, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
that's a good point.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you have, Avi, anything you want to share?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, quickly, I just wanted to ask, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Don't know if these headphones are okay. How do you deal with the imposter syndrome? It's just that, I'm at the very beginning stages of kind of like a virtual business assistant company, and it's, having to market myself. Sometimes I'm not 100%, I'm confident in my skills, but sometimes it's, the reservation of having to market yourself as a service, and the service that you provide. So how have you dealt with that in the past?
Yeah. So what I would say is, I love your word deal, because imposter syndrome is something that's pretty consistent for even like very successful people. So I think Maya Angelou said that even after becoming like a Nobel laureate, she still felt imposter syndrome. So it's like at every stage of your life, especially when you're growing your business and iterating, it might be something that accompanies you. And so it's I would say first, like embracing your relationship with imposter syndrome and not making it the enemy, but just noting that's part of the journey. And when you're especially pushing yourself to grow and learn and evolve, then that's always going to be like leaps that you're going to have to take. And maybe at each stage you might start wondering, like, can I do this next thing? And like some of those feelings come up. So embracing that, I would say. And then secondly, I really like to go to the root of what are some of the blocks there that are kind of shaping that imposter syndrome. So what are the stories that were formed that whether it's unworthiness or shame or guilt, or like there's typically root stories that we each have that inform that perception and our value in the world and the value that we offer. So really going deep into those, and more than first like clearing them, but also knowing them. So when they come up, you can start recognizing them and shifting them as they do, which they might, but like as when you recognize them, you're already creating some separation from them, so they don't completely take you over. And then you can dance with that fear that comes with the imposter syndrome, and not fight against it, but just be like, okay, well, you're accompanying me on this journey and we can be friends instead of battling each other.
Okay, so I have to do some real deep work, get a therapist, basically. No, yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Any other questions, ladies, that you have at all? All good. Anna, how can, because you shared so many interesting points, how can ladies work with you? I know you have a course that you are starting. Do you want to share a little bit more about that if you can?
Sure. Let me share my screen. So yeah, I'm really excited because we're launching the Bold Visionaire Dream Business Accelerator, and it's going to be a 4-week course supporting aspiring entrepreneurs and early stage entrepreneurs in fast tracking growth in their business. So, and that it doesn't matter if it's service based or product based or brick and mortar, it's really getting to the fundamentals. So the first week is going to be looking at like the business strategy, the second week, and how to get customer feedback and conduct these interviews, which is something that I know we talked about a lot today, and like how do you do testing and iterate based on that and do the right strategies for that. Then going into profit pricing and offers so that you can have a business that makes money and get very clear on like how to generate that. And then the third is marketing and growth and positioning your business. And then the last is your leadership and feeling really confident in it. It's going to be a mix of live group coaching like this, embodiment practices, which will help with like the imposter syndrome, templates that are already pre-made, an amazing community, and it's just a ton of value and pre-recorded trainings to support you through this. And it's lifetime membership. So every time we launch it, you get access to it. And if you want to find out more, this is the link. I'll also share it on the chat so that if you have any questions, you can look into that, and we can also schedule a quick call if you're interested.
Nice. When is it starting? I don't know if I missed that.
It starts on September 9th. So there's quite a bit of time, but it's going to be really exciting. And there's the first 5 people that sign up, we just opened it, get a 1-to-1 coaching session with me too, specifically for your business. So that's cool because it's like very personalized as well as the group stuff. And so I think there's only 1 or 2 spots left for that. So if you sign up, then you can get access to that as well.
Thank you so much, and make sure you share the link in the chat. I want to check it out too. Thank you. It's been really, really amazing to have you here, ladies. And we also have another session coming up with Anna, and I cannot remember what the title of it is. I really should have checked. Do you remember what we agreed, Anna?
I don't, but
Okay, great. But it's in July, that's for sure. And because we're doing a 3-part mini-series, for the first one was about marketing, this one is about really looking at the foundations of starting a business, and then we have a third one about something very exciting you should check out on the website. So yes, and I'll see you again in July, and I hope you ladies can join as well. And thank you so much for joining. It's been so nice to see you and have a chat with you, and see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
yes, and congratulations on being bold to start a business. Like it takes a lot of guts, but it's also one of the most rewarding things you can do. And I think it really provides so much freedom in every way. So I encourage all of you to do it. It feels right for you.
Yeah, it's a nice way to finish it as well. Thank you, ladies. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.